with all of this experience under your belt, I think you can share with us some do's and some don'ts that all people, whether, like I said before, whether it's a brewery that you've been running for several years, had just opened, or if you're in the mindset of wanting to go down that road and start a brewery. Zach's going to drop some knowledge on some things that you should do and some things you should avoid. Definitely. The floor is yours, sir.
Absolutely. I think the first two do's that I would encourage folks to pursue are really working in tandem. So the first that I have in my mind is cultivating the right relationships. That goes back to the question you asked about community acceptance here. So I'm talking about the community relationships. I'm talking about your potential bar customer relationships. I'm talking about folks that might do marketing for you, folks that might help you sell your beer. And the list goes on. This is something where if you're not putting yourself out there and if you're not creating a relatable brand and a relatable product, then the chance that you'll find folks to work with later down the road when you may need it, I think becomes harder, especially, again, with our marketplace that's getting more and more participants by the day. That being said, something that works hand in hand with that, cultivating the right relationships, and another hugely important factor is finding the right people to be a part of your business. At Noble Stein, we're blessed with a fantastic group of employees, and this operation would not function without them. They have such a pivotal role, not only in the tasking at hand, but also in building our brand and communicating what we want to communicate here, whether it's from a beer education perspective, from a community relations perspective, or otherwise. I think that's abundantly clear as one of the most important things for a brewery or for any small business for that matter. It's finding folks that are dedicated, that are out and helping for the right reasons. I consider myself to be incredibly lucky to be surrounded by the people that I'm surrounded by. The other big do, which again thematically, we're kind of tying it off by saying this, but it's focus on the liquid. We were privileged to be part of a documentary released back in April called Poured in PA, and the founder of Stouts Brewing Company, that was her focus in every segment of the interviews in that documentary. This focus on the liquid, and she's absolutely right. I take her word as very, very vital and essential to me because she's been around for as long as she has, operating successfully. But certainly my experience would continue to support that concept where people will come in, they'll be recommending to their friends to come in here, not just for the free popcorn, but also for the beer. And
which is a nice touch, I have to say.
I do my best. That's another do. Get a popcorn machine.
Absolutely.
It makes me thirsty just thinking about it.
You get those butter-flavored IPAs, right? Inside joke.
Indeed.
Please continue.
These pretzels are making me thirsty.
Attaboy.
Some of the don'ts that I would, again, almost reference back to per the conversation we've already had. One is don't expect an easy scale-up. Don't expect things to go really well right away with your brew system. Now, I would consider it to be the exception rather than the rule when it does go really well right out of the gate. But try to prepare yourself the best that you can, obviously, but preparations will in fact lead to perfection on batch number one. And I think that as an aside from that, it's to have a mindset, going back to the do's, it would be have a mindset of being a sponge and being open-minded towards innovation and the community around you. So a couple of other don'ts, one of which, again, is universal to running your own business, is do not expect a regular work schedule. You would think that working in a job that doesn't require on-call type of scenarios that you wouldn't be thinking about beer at 10:30 on a Tuesday evening unless you're drinking it. But in fact, I have gotten phone calls at very strange times about gift cards and otherwise. But in all seriousness, I do think that when you're starting your own business, you have to be ready to be standing at the bottom of that hill that the proverbial crap rolls down. And you have to be 100% ready for that mentally, physically, and you have to have that commitment to your business. So That might mean as a brewery owner that you have an employee that's supposed to designate, if that person gets hurt or gets sick, then you might be washing kegs for 12 hours, or you might be doing what you would consider the grunt work because somebody wasn't able to make it through. At the end of the day, I strongly encourage people to be prepared for that and don't come in with any mindset other than being willing and able to do those things. And the other don't that, again, I kind of mentioned at the very beginning in so many other words, I would say don't approach a brewery as a non-business business. You've got to go in with a planning attitude, and you've got to think things through, model things out, and test feasibilities, because although this is a hot industry and although people really enjoy high-quality craft beer, for your expansion, you've got to have cost accounting in line. You've got to have all of these things in place to really have things run like a well-oiled machine.
So if you had to do it all over again, would you do anything differently?
There are a couple of things that I would change. First, I would buy all adjoining properties and create massive parking lots. I would probably try to find a location with a little bit more parking and accessible areas nearby. That would be helpful for us, especially regarding foot traffic. Again, I like where we are, and I like what we did with the facility, but that's one of the weaknesses of this area. In terms of other things that I would do differently, admittedly, I would likely have cans earlier. We did release them in time for our 2-year anniversary, and I've been really happy about the reception on those. But I do think that having packaged product out there sooner, which a lot of places have successfully done, is important. And it's nothing but getting your name and your imagery and your brand out there faster. So that's something that I would have prioritized a little bit more differently than we did time frame wise. I will say one of the things that I've observed that's been very interesting about breweries around this area and really across the country is the notion of specialization in particular style or focus on particular style. I really like that business concept. However, I took and gleaned from my investment management background on this one, and I approach our beer production as an opportunity to have diversity and to represent different beer styles, challenge the consumer. Again, this is something that I know you and I have discussed outside of this podcast, but I like to have products that challenge the consumer and bring about different flavor profiles for different palates to try out. So that's something. That's one of the things that I'm seeing. I'm seeing the different models be successful. I'm seeing all of the models in that sense be successful in certain instances. So I would say that the aspiring brewer could have some flexibility in what they choose, whether they focus on sours or focus on hazy IPAs or focus on diversity. I think there's room for everybody.